Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to talk about camping and tunneling, and I really want to address that one very, very common sentiment of I need to camp and tunnel to win. Because I think that is one of the most misguided and repeated lies in the entire DBD community. Now, I'm not going to diminish the fact that at the proper times, when done correctly, camping and tunneling is very strong. In fact, it's one of the strongest things you can do. I would say proxy camping is actually the single strongest thing a killer can do in the right scenario. The problem is, most people that play this game are just simply not that experienced at it, and they look to, better players. They look to like comp matches and things like that for what to do. So they'll watch like a comp DVD VOD or something like that and see, hey, everyone's camping and tunneling here. That's what all the best players are doing. Now I need to do that. But the problem is they don't realize the context of why the camping and tunneling is working for those players in that scenario. And so they just try to kind of mindlessly replicate it, and they end up losing all their gens and then complaining that survivors are OP. And they're like, oh, I need to camp and tunnel because these gens are going so fast. Not realizing that the gens are going so fast because you're camping and tunneling and because you're not pressuring anybody else in the entire map. If you ever load into a match and just stood still AFK, it's insane how fast generators go. It's almost like when they're completely unimpeded, the game goes pretty fucking fast. All the gens can be done in 3 minutes if you don't do anything. And so I think the main problem is that most people don't understand the context of why situationally camping and tunneling is good, and so they just sort of brainlessly do it, and that ends up being a detriment, I believe, more often than it's actually a boon to them. And so I want to kind of go over that. So first off, let's talk about tunneling specifically. The downsides of tunneling. The thing is, I don't really want to make a guide on the smart times to camp and tunnel because I don't want more people to do that, so I'm just not going to. I am going to talk about the risks of camping and tunneling, though. So tunneling is a very, very all-in strat. It's just sort of like gambling. You're taking a lot of dice rolls and hoping they go into your favor. So when you tunnel, you're trying to get one person out of the match as quickly as possible, because if you can do that quickly, then yeah, the game is going to go massively in your favor. It's going to be, maybe 3 gens left, but only 3 survivors, and that's going to be really good for you. So that is true that getting a survivor out of the match as quickly as possible is the most efficient thing you can do as killer. No one's going to deny that. But the problem is you're taking that gamble. Because killer queues are so long, MMR essentially doesn't even exist. So the survivors you're going against are going to be completely like random in terms of skill level. You have no idea what you're going to go against. And you're basically taking the gamble when you tunnel somebody that the survivor you're chasing is not good at the game. Because if they're not, it's going to go in your favor. You're going to be able to down them 30 seconds, probably before, there might just only one gen is pop before you get your first down. And then you can camp and tunnel to pretty decent effect. But you're taking that gamble. If you do get a survivor that is actually pretty decent or even really good, you're in a much worse scenario because it's going to take much longer to down them. Now, this doesn't apply if you're playing like Nurse with Range or Blight with Alk Ring and Blighted Crow or whatever. But those are more balancing issues with those things than tunneling and camping in general. I'm talking about like your standard game with a regular killer, even a good killer. I'm just saying not one of the absolute most broken ones because, yeah, they can ignore all forms of this. Even with DS, they just blink if you run away with off the record. If they just blink the entire distance you got, it doesn't matter with those killers. But for most killers, if you're going against a good survivor, you're taking that huge risk because if you can't down them before like 2 gens have popped, you're pretty much fucked. Because at this point now you're all in on downing that survivor. And if you can't commit to the kill for them, you've just completely thrown the entire game. And I think that is something that people fall into a lot. They get so invested into downing one person that they never develop the killer skill, which is incredibly important and one of the biggest killer skill caps that there is because it's so hard to teach, and that's when to abandon a chase. That is one of the most important things a good killer can learn, when to just give up on a chase and go somewhere else. But people that tunnel, they don't have that skill set, and they just think, well, this is the only choice I have to keep tunneling this person, and they're screwed. But it's very hard to teach the difference. But, for example, like it's like a calculation you have to do in your head. Okay, is the time spent chasing this person minus the resources that have been used up worth it? That's kind of what the basic formula is. If it doesn't end up in a certain value, you need to ditch that chase and go find someone else. Because if you try to chase other people, you're 4 times as likely to find a less skilled opponent. If you just tunnel the first guy you see, you're just taking a 1 in 4 gamble that, they're going to be good or bad. But if you chase everybody, the chances of encountering a slightly less skilled player that's easier to down is way better. So that's one way to look at it. But the thing is, like I said, it's such an all-in strat that if it does not work, if you can't down them fast enough, you're screwed. If they get unhooked, you're probably still screwed, because if they're good and they have, off the record, or they have bar time when they save them, or they have any anti-tunneling perks of any kind, they're going to keep looping you again. And then it's going to take you even longer to down that person. By that point, almost all the gens are done when you finally do, because you will eventually down them. But by that point, there might be one or no gens left. And what will typically happen is that person will die. You'll catch another guy at the exit gate, camp him till he dies, and then you get 2 kills. But that's not winning. You're not winning the match. All that's doing is making everybody in that match miserable, and you're not even winning. So why are you doing it? It doesn't make any sense. So that is the gamble you take. However, for every time you might encounter a decent player, you also might get a shitty player that frankly has no idea what they're doing. You down them in 30 seconds, and then time efficiency wise, that becomes a lot harder to win for the survivors. So if, no gens have popped and you start camping and tunneling the first person, well then it's going to go a bit more in your favor. So like I said, you are rolling the dice. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't like leaving my games up to dice rolls like that. I know this game is very RNG based, but that is another layer of RNG I don't want to take, because I consider myself to be very good at killer. But if I'm playing anyone that's not the absolute strongest shit in the entire game and I go against a good player, they're still going to run me for a minute depending on the map. Now, they might use a lot of the map and I can pressure them in certain ways to make them burn pallets very fast. And that still is good for, game efficiency overall, leading to snowballing later. But typically, once I notice a survivor's good, I'll just leave. Even if I have to spend 20 seconds walking somewhere else, it'll still be more efficient for me to go find somebody else. Because the chance of all 4 survivors being very good in a just regular match is very, very, very low. It's incredibly rare. You will get good survivors in a lot of your matches. That's just something that does happen. But the chances of every single one of them being like a flawless player, it's so rare, I don't even remember the last time that's happened. So that is why learning to abandon chases is, I think, smarter than just tunneling the first guy you see. But so that's the main flaw with tunneling. It's just a fully all-in dice roll that could go in your favor or can make you lose the game, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Next, camping. Camping, it follows the same rhythm. It depends how quickly they can down that first survivor. Because if you're a Bubba and you down someone at 5 gens, that guy's dead if you want him to die. Like, there's just no saving them, and you'll probably get another kill too, because they're not going to be able to do enough gens in time for you to circumvent, that. You might even get 3 kills, depending on how early you get that first down. But again, you're taking that same gamble. If you can't down that first survivor in a quick amount of time, camping them is going to be not that good of an idea. And for solo queue, let me just go over how you deal with campers. It's not fun. It's boring as shit, but this is how you deal with it. If you want to, counter their optimal play with your own, this is how you deal with it. So if you're the one getting camped, do the I'm getting camped dance on the hook. There's no communication in this game. So the I'm getting camped dance is you just repeatedly press M1, your arms fling up in the air. This has been the universal sign in the community for I'm being camped for over 6 years now. So just the person on the hook, you have to do that. For everyone not on the hook, here's what you do. It's incredibly boring. You ignore the guy on the hook for 1 minute and 40 seconds. You just do generators that entire time. You're going to be able to do over 3 generators in that time if the killer is just camping. That is a lot. So if the survivor, if only 1 gen pops when that first down happened, you're going to be at 1 gen left by the time that survivor's about to die. But the thing is, you still don't have to let them die. They're going to burn through that first hook stage. You just have to accept that survivor's only going to get 1 bonus life. But if you wait until kind of the last minute and then finally go for that save, you're going to get down, by the way. It's going to be a 1-for-1. Like, you're going to obviously go down on hooking that person, but you give that person another chance, and the killer is forced to tunnel that person because they've invested so much time into killing them that if they don't, they've completely thrown the game. So they have to chase that person, which means they're probably just going to down you. They're going to down the unhooker and slug him and then immediately start tunneling the other person. So in that scenario where we have like 1 generator left, that guy's getting tunneled. He might last anywhere from 20 seconds to a minute. Like, he's going to go down. He's going to die, obviously. But in that 20 seconds to a minute, another guy can come pick you up. Or even if they don't pick you up, even if the other 2 guys just work on gens while you stay slugged, either way is good. They're going to finish that last gen in time. It's just simple math. Like, the time efficiency, if the survivors play correctly, doesn't work for the killer. Because typically, they're not going to have, they're not going to have perks set up. If they're just camping and tunneling, they're not going to have Pentimento. They're not going to have Thanatophobia, Mass Injures. Not going to have Dying Light. They're not going to have Pain Resonance from multiple hooks. They're not going to have Rune value. They're going to have no perk value whatsoever. The only perk that really helps with camping is Deadlock. And so they're not really going to benefit from anything that they have. That is another huge sign that people are brainlessly camping and tunneling, because there was this post on the DBD forums of someone saying, hey, look, the game is still survivor sided on this patch, which I really don't think it is anymore. It's still survivor sided. And then they showed a screenshot of everyone escaping, and then they showed their perks. And their perks were Pentimento, Ruin, Pain Resonance, and Eruption or Overcharge. I forget the last one. Basically, they had a bunch of perks that I guarantee if they camp and tunnel, they use 0 times. So many people are camping and tunneling, and they have 4 perks that just do nothing. They're not. Why even bring perks at that point? Just bring NOED and nothing else, because they have so many perks that require you to walk around the map and kick gens and set up other totems and hook people on scourge hooks and, you know, pressure people off gens for ruin and stuff like that. They're getting 0 perk value by doing this. And I don't know how people are not making the connection that if you actually get value from these perks, you will get people out of the match at a slightly slower rate, but the game will also go slower because you're now actually using your game delay perks by moving around the map. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people do not understand. Games go so fast a lot. I'm not saying all the time, most of the time, because the killer is just staying in one area and not threatening anybody else to do anything. And because of that, they're not using any perks or regression. And, you know, as you probably noticed, if you play DBD with 0 gen regression perks, like, you better be playing Nurse or Blight or something, because it's still pretty rough to use 0 game delay perks. Of course, you can still win, especially if you've got very good chase potential and you've got good chase perks, but it's harder to win with no game delay. But that's what people that are playing in this camping and tunneling playstyle are doing. They're playing with no game delay because they're just not using the perks that they're bringing into the match. So this is something that people need to understand. If you're camping and tunneling, your games are going to go faster, which leads to this negative feedback loop that you need to keep camping and tunneling because the survivors are gen rushing so fast. But that's only happening because you're not going out into the map and delaying the game. And only, like, if you're getting the same result in both sides, if you get the same amount of kills and the same amount of game delay roughly overall from both sides, and one of them is just boring as shit and ruins the game for everybody, why pick the option that's the same result but more fun for everybody? I don't understand. And I just hope people can, I don't know, make that connection in their head, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. Again, I'm not saying that camping and tunneling is not smart, because in the right scenarios that I'm not going to go over because I don't want to teach people what are the right scenarios, in the right scenarios, it is undeniably smart. But I think most people do it incorrectly and then blame the game itself. And I think that's probably the main issue. As a final note, if you guys notice, when I do my whole Negascot day, which is like, you know, once a year, I just play as sweaty as humanly possible. Even in those days, I don't really camp and tunnel that much. I'll probably do it a little bit more. But it's mostly just like the busted add-ons and things like that that I would never bring. That is making me win a lot. But if you actually watch those, I'm still not really camping and tunneling a lot. And it's not because I'm trying to be nice. The whole point of that day is to try to be as big of a dick as possible. And I still don't really camp and tunnel that much on it. And that's because it's just not the smartest idea. Like, it genuinely is not the smartest way to win the match a lot of the time. I would say for just the average, you know, regular experienced killer, I would say a majority of the time, it's not even the correct play to win the match overall. But hopefully once people learn to counter it more, that's the thing. Camping and tunneling is usually only as strong as the opponents that they're going against allow it to be. And I think if something like that is limited by one side and not the other, like killer camping and tunneling is static. It's going to be the same thing. They're just standing there. Nothing is being done. It's just, that stays the same. But survivors that learn the strats to deal with it more, they're going to keep going up as more people learn, as more people learn, as more people learn. This will always stay the same, but the counters to it will get stronger and stronger until killers eventually realize, hey, maybe this is not actually the smartest play. And I guess that's the whole trend I want the community to move towards. Again, nothing to do with Survivor Rulebook. It's just genuinely the smartest way to play a lot of the time, to use your perks, spread pressure throughout the map, and then there are scenarios where tunneling and camping is smart to do, but figure that on your own because I don't want to teach you that. But that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.